Well, hello, everyone. My name is George Smith, and I have the pleasure of serving as the director of Michigan State University AgBioResearch. I'm here today with my good friend and colleague, Representative Julie Brixie, and we're going to have a great conversation about agriculture, its importance to the state of Michigan, the role that ag research scientists play in doing research to solve problems, and the important role that our colleagues in MSU Extension play in getting that information out to people in the ag community and our communities in general, where it can be applied in a positive fashion and make a difference. So, Representative Brixie, welcome. We're very happy to have you with us today and look forward to the conversation.
My pleasure, George.
All right, so to kind of kick things off, let's talk a little bit about a subject that I know is near and dear to my heart, and I know also know, given your background, is near and dear to your heart. Is agriculture, which is the state's second largest economic driver. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and your connection to this important area, and then kind of follow that up with what do you hear from your constituents in your district, whether it be farmers, agriculture industry representatives, or people in communities about the importance of agriculture and the needs of the industry in Michigan?
Sure. I have a master's degree in crop and soil sciences and environmental toxicology from MSU. Go Green, baby.
Go white.
And I have a lot of education in this area. I grew up in Chicago, but even though I grew up as a city person, we have cousins that live in Nebraska on a 2,000-acre cattle ranch. And so our parents thought that it was important for my cousins and I to learn from each other's environments. And all of us kids spent a summer in the other environment. So my cousins are farmers, ranchers, and I ended up marrying someone who grew up on a very small dairy farm in northern Wisconsin. And so I have a lot of current family members and former family members who were in the farming industry, and I have a degree. So that's kind of that's a little bit of the part of why I'm interested in it. But of course, being in Michigan as a state representative, one of the most wonderful things I think about Michigan is the diversity of our state. And, we have so many specialty crops. We're very similar to California in that respect and different from other Midwestern states that are growing a lot of corn and beans and wheat. So those specialty crops make us very unique, but they also present some unique challenges to us. One of the interesting things for me, I think, as a person in the legislature is how tied our specialty crops are to the sense of place of Michigan communities. So it's more than just, the blueberry industry or the cherry industry. It's really part of the state's identity, these different small niche agricultural products that we have. So being that it's the second largest economic driver, it's important for economic reasons. It's also important for tourism, and it's also important for maintaining our identity of the state. So things that I hear in the communities and in the industry is the kind of the ever consolidating nature of agriculture. You have to buy bigger and bigger machines to harvest your crops. The cows get milked by robots, and it gets more expensive and there's fewer people that are doing it. And yet, with all these specialty crops we have, that small family farm is still a thing. And those folks need a lot of support. So, what we've been hearing over the last few years is some recurring themes. One is workforce and the availability of people willing to do the seasonal work that is so much a part of Michigan agriculture. So the ability of the farmers to hire those workers with the changes that we've had in some political administrations, it's gotten more challenging for farmers to be able to hire the seasonal workers, and they really need to be able to maximize what they're able to do. So a very simple example of a problem that we have is that people who are here from another country, obtaining a driver's license is very challenging. And so even people who are here on work visas, getting the right kind of driver's license for them, there's been political obstacles put in the way that prevents them, even though they drove in their home country and they'll drive when they go back there, they can't get a driver's license here. And thus they can't always operate all of the farm machinery that they need to. So that's one kind of recurring theme that we hear. Another one is the need for cold storage in a variety of places throughout the state. Another one is processing facilities to help the specialty crop folks be able to maximize their profits. If they're able to take their crop to be processed right here in Michigan, then of course they can be selling a processed product rather than just the raw commodity, which will give them better profits. Tariffs have had an enormous impact and have really upended the entire agricultural industry, from the cost of tractors or processing equipment to the amount of money that farmers are able to receive for their agricultural products. Soybeans have taken a huge hit. The instability, the global instability that has resulted because of the tariff wars that we've been seeing over the past year have had a terrible effect on our farmers. Another recurring theme that we hear is that again, the specialty crops make us such a unique place. And there's small geographic areas that are growing these crops. And so as weather changes and climate changes, we've seen a lot of extreme weather variability and climate change. That has a big influence on where can these crops go? Why are we special? We have an enormous amount of coastline, and that is really great for the fruit industry. But they're all kind of very small geographic areas that are suitable. And as our climate warms, that has an impact on the things that they're growing. It isn't very easy to pack up an apple orchard or a cherry orchard and move it 40 miles to the north. That just is not really feasible.
Representative, what a great list of the challenges facing Michigan agriculture. And as I look back at the opportunities to sort of do these podcasts, I learn something each and every time. And so I learned some really new information about you and how deep the roots of your family tree kind of extend into agriculture, along with your husband's. And, if the theme of this podcast was David Letterman's top 10 list of the challenges facing Michigan agriculture, I think you put together a pretty strong list. And, we could have an in-depth conversation on all of the issues you put forward. So just to provide a little bit of perspective and highlight a few things, I really appreciated what you said, particularly about the role of agriculture and our farms of all sizes, including small farms, as being the foundation of our rural economies and communities. That is so important to the future. And there is so much at risk if we lose that aspect of agriculture and we lose that critical component of these communities. It really makes Michigan special. Our specialty crops, that diversity, adds so much um, to Michigan agriculture, the importance of processing. You hit on those issues as well. And as we talk about the role of ag bioresearch going forward, there's so many examples, and maybe we'll get into a few of those of where we are doing tangible research, we meaning our scientists, that will really make a difference, whether it's generating new data that can inform policy or provide estimates of the impact of various policies, to new tools and new technologies, new solutions that reduce the reliance to some extent of labor on farms. So yeah, we could talk for 30 minutes on every one of those, but great job laying out the issues. So let's talk a little bit more about what makes Michigan agriculture special. And one of the things I always talk about is unique partnerships within the agriculture industry and how our commodity groups work together. Can you provide your perspective as a state representative on why these unique partnerships are important and contribute to success of the industry and have a positive impact on, Michiganders as a whole?
I think that, because of that crop diversity that I talked about, it really creates a unique environment in Michigan. If you're in Iowa or Illinois and you're growing corn and beans, the corn and bean industries are very large and they do a lot of research that they pay for on their own. The pickles, the cherries, the peaches, these specialty crops, they don't have those big industries. So it's really important for our agricultural university to be able to do research to help all of those folks in order for us to continue with the success. And as I had mentioned, with the kind of the consolidation of agriculture really worldwide, one of the things that does is can create pathways of food instability and gaps and insecurity. We want to make sure that we have access to the food that we grow here in the state, and that if something happens in another country, we aren't left with the big hole in our food supply. And I think that MSU has a really, really important contribution in helping all those other specialty crop folks.
Yeah, fantastic, Representative. Spot on. So, drilling down a little bit further on the importance of agricultural research, can you provide a little more insight about how research is really vital to agriculture, both growth and sustainability of agriculture in Michigan? And from a legislative perspective, what are the types of challenges facing Michigan agriculture that the legislator looks to address are really critical when making funding decisions?
So as I mentioned before, we're going to hear a current theme about the wide diversity of agricultural products, which leads to the need for these very specialized research opportunities. Climate change, climate variability, these are huge issues that we're facing, whether it be the temperature of Lake Michigan, or the temperature or time that the rain comes, when are the dry periods. All of these things really impact their ability to thrive. Pests are another really big issue. When you have these big monocultures growing, you can experience new pests that come from other places in the world that can really devastate a whole industry, whether it be an actual bug or something like a rust or a mold or a mildew problem that is growing on a specific crop. And so climate change, pest control, and sustainability, I think are probably three of the really top things that we're looking at.
Yeah, right on, Representative. I couldn't agree more. And those are the common challenges which we hear from our stakeholders in the agricultural community repeatedly as our recurring issues, whether we're talking about variation in extreme weather and the impacts on production, emerging pests and pathogens. Yeah, you nailed it. You described it beautifully. And we're really very feel fortunate to have strong support from the state of Michigan for programs that directly address those challenges. And I know you were the driving force behind establishment of a new program called the Agriculture Resiliency Program that was designed to address many of the challenges which you outlined. So can you tell us why it's been a priority for the legislature and the importance of funding programs like the Agriculture Resiliency Program, Project Green, and the Michigan Alliance for Animal Agriculture that provide support for research to address priorities of Michigan agriculture and support for our partners in extension to get that information out to our farmers, our growers, ranchers, where it can be applied in a fashion to really make a difference.
Sure. I think that, we all had a big learning experience with the global pandemic that occurred, and how rapid something can spread across the entire world and impact everyone in a very devastating way. Now, as it relates to agriculture, since I've been in the legislature, we've had a few things pop up that are unexpected, and these programs at MSU, the Alliance for Animal Agriculture, was able to provide an incredibly rapid response to the bird flu that struck here and in other states and many parts of the country, that first really negatively impacted the egg industry and the chicken industry, but then very troublingly spread and jumped species and moved into the dairy industry, where humans were getting exposed and impacted through milk, and cats were involved. So these are the types of things that the existing network that MSU has, the relationships on the ground through conservation and through all of these extension programs, you guys were able to really do an amazing job with the rapid response in the dairy industry and leading the nation in helping assess the risk, find out what to do about it, and look for other areas for these pathogens, how they spread and what can we do. And we learned a lot from it. And I think I feel like we averted what could have been a much worse disaster. The egg prices were really impacted, but the dairy industry, I think, was in a much better shape because of MSU's work and immediate rapid response. And that's one of the benefits of these programs.
Yeah, a great example, Representative Brixie. Our faculty compete as well as faculty in any state in the country for federal funding for research from the U.S. Department of Agriculture and other sources. But when the bird flu situation arose in the state of Michigan, if our faculty would have had to wait for funding through that mechanism, we would have been talking 9 months, 12 months, 18 months later, and that's too late. So, what a great testimony to the importance of programs like Michigan Alliance for Animal Agriculture, where we could respond immediately and get the boots on the ground out on farms, collecting data and providing information to our farmers in the heat of the crisis. So, very, very, very relevant example. We're very appreciative that this program was in place and provided a mechanism to respond rapidly. And I agree, it really did make a difference. Representative, can you provide some insight on what would be useful to farmers in the agriculture community to know about discussions held at the legislative level about agriculture?
I think the fundamental thing that I would like farmers to know is that we want to help farmers in our state, and we understand the importance of farming in Michigan and how tied it is to our economy, our visitors, and our own, our own people taking vacations to pick cherries or blueberries or apples. That it's such a deep, deep, deep rooted part of our culture, that we're here to help you. And we need back and forth communication in order to be the most effective at doing that.
Spot on, Representative. Don't hesitate to communicate regularly, and provide information about the importance of the work that's done in agriculture. And I really appreciate the point that you've mentioned a couple times, the importance of agritourism as well. It does contribute to the state. It provides another avenue for revenues for our farmers, and a great service when people from all across the state that don't know and understand agriculture can actually get out on a farm, have ability to pick their own pumpkins or whatever it is, but also learn about agriculture in the process. So, Representative, we're getting to the end of our time together, and it's been a great conversation. So, I guess the parting question I would have for you is, what advice would you give to MSU to better communicate the impact of research and outreach with our legislators, farmers, and the general public?
Okay, so first I want to give you a pat on the back and say, please, please, please continue what you're doing now, because you're doing a really great job at that communication. There often is a gap between the legislators and the farmers on the ground. We talk to each one of our own individual constituents, but not someone from another district. So that connection is really important. I think that one of the things that we did was had a town hall that you guys were very gracious in participating in, to really talk about the impact of the SNAP Ed cuts and the one big beautiful bill changes. It was very well attended, and I think your willingness to look at these individual topics that pop up that have a legislative or policy connection, to be able to help us understand how that's impacting people on the ground, and for you to help the people on the ground to understand what you can do for them, and then how do we change our policies if we have the ability to react to that. Another thing that has been really helpful is the continued presence of MSU testifying at both Senate and House committee hearings to help educate lawmakers about different issues that are occurring in real time. And I am very grateful to the work you've done and the quality of the testimony that you've been able to deliver. The other thing is, I think that the importance, I cannot underemphasize the importance of continuing your relationships with legislators. We talk about MSU and the different research programs in all of our newsletters that we send out to the public. And if other legislators have the opportunity to do that, then that's another way to make sure all of the appropriate people are receiving, the appropriate information or the relevant information. With kind of the demise of newspapers, I think that those efforts to go into other media forms are important. And I'd encourage you to continue to do that. And I imagine that if this is a podcast, then you're doing it already. So good job. Keep it up.
Well, Representative, we really appreciate the kind words and we appreciate all your strong support for the work we do. And I'm here to tell you that we will never take for granted the importance of communication and being in dialogue with our partners downtown in the legislature, talking about the whole host of issues which our AgBioResearch funded scientists and our folks in Extension are here to address. We provide a service for people of the state of Michigan to do work that will really make a difference. We're committed to doing that, and it's on us to continue to tell that story and tell that story through a whole host of different venues, hence the genesis of the podcasts. And we're so thrilled that you were able to join us. I'm sad we're out of time, but again, thank you for your support. We look forward to continued dialogue and maybe having you on a future podcast to continue our conversations.
To do that at any time.